Quite often you will hear people that are in favour of LGBT emphasis in education, for example, to be implemented into schools, primary schools. You'll hear them repeat the argument that it will reduce bullying. Now that's merely a hypothesis. They don't actually know that will reduce bullying. They'll just bully for something else. That's what kids do. But nonetheless, they wholeheartedly believe that this will prevent bullying forevermore. That's what they say. That's a hypothesis. But then in the next breath, if I ask them a question such as, if we start teaching children that gender's a spectrum, and there's non-binaries and non-conforming and all the other genders, they all exist. It's an infinite spectrum for you to explore for yourself. And you're not telling me that there's a possibility that could confuse a couple of children. That's scaremongering, bigotry and transphobia partly. They point blank refuse to accept that. They point blank refuse to acknowledge that there's even a remote possibility that it could have damaging effects for a child or children. But in the next breath, they want everybody to go along with the notion that their implementations and their suggestions will do exactly as they say it will. And here we go again. It's another example of an article where they use the plight of kids that get bullied as a means to get many of their proposals and suggestions, if not implemented, at least put into the public opinion. But they can slant opinion towards, into their favour, by using bullying as an excuse for doing so. What I mean by that is when you go, right off the bat, the headline itself, celebrate difference and we can beat the scourge of bullying. That's fair enough. But you come down to this paragraph right here, and it doesn't take you quite long to figure out that it's riddled with far left talking points. So again, I ask, if kids get taught about all of the things that they want to implement, they'll just bully for something else. So all you've really done is drummed in all your lefty beliefs into children. Can't help but feel that's really what you want to do. You can't all seriously believe that bullying will stop completely once you impose your lefty talking points into their heads. Come on now. But anyway, what is prejudice-based bullying? All bullying is about behaviour, which can take many forms. The impact that behaviour has on a person's feelings of agency and control. When a behaviour is motivated by prejudice against a kid or young person's actual or perceived identity, it becomes prejudice-based bullying. Young people may experience prejudice-based bullying related to a characteristic unique to their identity or circumstance, such as their appearance, nationality, sexual orientation, or additional support, among many others. Right? Okay. But there's one fundamental problem I have with this sentence, and that's not, of course, taking into consideration all the talking points I just mentioned. I was on about. It's this here, prejudice-based bullying. Do you really think primary school kids know what the fuck that is? They bully. This notion that every kid that gets bullied that isn't white, it has to be because of racism or whatever it may be. If you want to really preach about equality, then surely when a black kid gets bullied, it should be treated exactly the same way as when a white kid gets bullied, unless of course they're bullying him because he's black. But if they're just bullying him and it's not because he's black, you can't then just immediately jump the gun anyway and assume that they're bullying him because he's black. And we see this time and time again. It doesn't matter what scenario we're talking about. Whatever, if it's somebody that happens to be a minority, it's always whatever happened to them because of some form of prejudice. And this is no different. Do you really think kids give it a second thought? I wonder who we should bully. I'm really into the idea of prejudice-based bullying. So what are you going to do? You're going to roll out the red carpet and implement as much anti-prejudice-based bullying rhetoric as possible, filling kids' heads with to see the world exactly the way you want them to see it. Somewhat sadistic if you ask me, but it's all disguised under the guise of diversity, inclusion and anti-bullying. Prejudice-based bullying can go on to have a huge impact on young people throughout their lives, as does bullying. What is so special about prejudice-based bullying in comparison to bullying itself? Quite frankly, just because you've called it prejudice-based bullying, I don't think it's any different to bullying itself. It's just bullying, but you have to give it a special little name, because this is what we're talking about here. You've got to highlight the far left talking points. They can't they can't suggest anything anymore without it being riddled with some hidden agenda. Manifesting in mental health concerns and isolation. Like all bullying, prejudice-based bullying has a ripple effect, and when left unaddressed, it can have environmental impact and affect young people's values and attitudes. What was the point of this paragraph if you're just going to compare it to bullying anyway? Why can't you just call it bullying? If a kid gets bullied because he's got big ears, how is that different between a kid getting bullied for being a Muslim? It's not fucking different. Prejudice is a social problem and one of real political and social relevance today. If you're an adult, possibly. Not for a bunch of children that aren't even in double digits yet. It's not limited to our schools or to children or young people. It's just really not in schools to the capacity that they claim it is. There's always the exaggerated or fabricated statistics from the experts to justify the suggestions that they've got that are premeditated, and this is no different with this here saying apparently bullying statistics are on the rise. Oh, how convenient, they're on the rise now. Just as you all want to start shoving more of this shit into the lives of children, bullying is now conveniently on the rise to help your cause seem a bit more plausible. So anyway, where am I? Prejudice is a social problem, one of real political and social relevance today. It's not limited to our schools or to children or young people. However, through the vehicle of education, learning and youth work, educators are in a vital position to harness social change. Social change. Here we go. You just can't help yourself. You're going to use the plan. Social change, my fuck's sake. By engaging young people in discussions about these issues, what gender identity issues, race relations, we can help them equipped with the knowledge and awareness to understand the impact of prejudice and prejudice-based bullying. We're aiming to address this as part of our new campaign, Celebrating Difference. Oh dear. A country that's 96% white, but yet we need to roll out the red carpet for organisations and charities that talk about diversity and inclusion. Well, pretty much everybody here looks the same for the time being until Sturgeon gets her way, if she gets her way. So all this talk of minorities, they really are a minority here, a very small one. Our campaign aims to support educators to spark meaningful conversations with children and young people of all ages and the important issues so that they can continue to create a positive, respective culture that is inclusive for all. And I wonder who gets to decide what these important issues will be. Will it be immigration? Will they talk about why immigration should be limited to an extent at the very least? Or no, it'll probably be why immigration is a good thing. Or will it be shit like that? We just won't mention that at all because it's a bit of a tricky subject. You're just going to teach them the things that you can warp their minds with. Such as LGBT Youth Scotland. Fuck's sake, man. Working with two charities as well as consulting with wider campaign partners including YouthLink Scotland and LGBT Youth Scotland, we've developed a campaign to help educators discuss prejudice-based bullying with young people. A type of bullying they didn't even know existed until you brought light to it. So the importance of celebrating difference. So yes, diversity is a strength, remember. Research, here we go, shows that anti-bullying work that clearly addresses the particular needs of minority groups is more effective. Oh god, fuck's sake. What is the difference between the life of a minority and the life of someone that wouldn't be considered to be part of a minority? It's the very same people that spend every waking moment of their life claiming that they're fighting for the rights of said people, aka minorities. They do a very good job of isolating them at every possible fucking given notice. I mean, you need to stress the particular needs of minority groups. We need to highlight and put on a pedestal the life of somebody who would be considered a minority. Because remember, kids, minority doesn't mean not enough to equate to majority. Minority means second or third class citizen, kids. Yes. There's no need to address the root cause of prejudice as well as effectively responding to incidents as they arise. No, as there is a need to address the root cause of prejudice as they arise. With the help of our campaign partners, Show Racism the Red Card Scotland, to a country that's 96% white, but still we've somehow got a rampant rise in racism. I just don't know where it's coming from. We've developed a set of learning materials for education practitioners to use in both the classroom and young group settings. Oh my god, there we go again. More toolkits, more far left toolkits that focus on important issues for young people, such as stereotypes, racism, appearance-related bullying, and LGBT inclusion. Oh my god. While our Celebrating Difference campaign runs throughout January and February, it feeds into Respect Me's wider Choose Respect anti-bullying campaign that spans the entire academic year, reinforcing the message that creating inclusive environments where bullying cannot thrive is something that can be nurtured all year round. But yet bullying's still on the fucking rise apparently. So what is this? You've just contradicted your whole premise. But anyway, celebrating 4 key phases made up of self-reflection, celebrating difference, building empathy, and positive relationships. This I have got to see. Anyway, So I think I'll leave on this note. Just a quick summary of what I was alluding to. I by no means condone any bullying that happens. It's obviously a horrible thing that many kids go through, of all colours, shapes, sizes, and all the rest of it. But it just seems to me every time that they want to implement things regarding far left talking points, they always use bullying as the scapegoat in that regard, which makes the subject itself somewhat difficult to try and dissect or criticise without it coming across as what they want you to see. Meaning, of course, so you're fine with kids getting bullied for said reasons. But my point is that there's a blatant exaggeration at play here, a lot of fabrication at play here, and hysteria always seems to come into effect whenever they want to implement something, or even if they're just suggesting something to be implemented in the future. There's always some so-called statistic or study or expert that comes out to back up the claim at the very same time. I'm not disputing whether or not children get bullied for a variety of different reasons, some of the ones that they've talked about in this article. But isn't it funny that they want to put these certain types of characteristics onto pedestals, and it just seems to be a different version of everything else, and the revamped hate crime laws that they want to implement to protect every aspect of society bar men, white men, really. And here we go again. You're highlighting the importance of specific types of categories of people that you people are guilty of creating yourself. You created these boxes. You put people in individual little boxes, and now you use these said boxes as poor little oppressed minority groups, and you use their plight or their lack of plight, because who knows if what's true and what's not, as justification to pass more and more and more stuff into the education system that quite frankly has no place there for a lot of it. I mean, even if you wait till high school, it wouldn't have not much of a complaint. I'd still have a complaint regarding the LGBT part, but I mean, highlight these things to kids when they're at an age to understand what you're talking about, because quite frankly, I don't think any kid needs to know what this stuff's about. And when it's all said and done, and when they're all in tune to your way of thinking, and they still continue to bullying potentially, or possibly, or even just wholeheartedly they will be, which I personally believe they will, what are you going to do then? Shrug your shoulders, well, we tried. Or is it possible to assume, which I also think is the case, that you know fine well that this isn't going to stop bullying, this is just another way to get in your shit, pretending, of course, it's for the plight of the bullied kids. Anyway, peace.